I hyperfixated on Knights of Guinevere since its pilot episode released on September 19th of this year, the results of that being a fat Google Doc, multiple saved Reddit threads, consuming fan art at an unhealthy rate, and binging every video on the topic. But there was one question, one desire I couldn't satiate. What's the ending? With no confirmation on whether this show will be greenlit or not, I am left to ruminate on this. Even if it did get greenlit, we are looking at months, if not years, until a decent portion of the plot gets released. So I did what I do best, and that's make a video on something I'm probably unqualified to talk about. Today, I will answer every question that has arisen thus far and solve the ending of the series, so you don't have to wait. Of course, bonus being you get to see my Knights of Guinevere fan art, so let's get theory crafting. Knights of Guinevere has so many major themes in the story. We have Arthurian legends, critiques on capitalism, consumerism, and large entertainment corporations like Disney. The characters all have very different worldviews and plot lines that the story is alluding to, so let's start simple. What's up with Frankie? What are those robot plush animals, and why is Frankie the only one able to interact with them? We know that whatever it is, or whatever she has, it almost transports her to a subdimension, or different state of mind in which she's still present and speaking in the real world, but the people around her can't see what she sees. Frankie can speak with inanimate objects, robots like Gwen, and recall information like an entire infomercial. I want to specifically mention that it's an infomercial, almost like something given to new employees or investors to understand the insides of the company. They aren't necessarily selling anything, but just giving information, especially when we get to see this still shot of a machine with a person strapped to it and a brain scan. It even has little notes on it on how it works, almost like a surgery table, possibly for robots or humans or something in between. This is the same operating table slash machine we see later in the episode when they go to fix up Gwen. Which brings me back to the popular theory that Frankie is a cyborg or has some kind of Park Planet tech that grants her access to Park Planet information, and that allows her to tap into this fantastical dimension. Just like how all of Gwen's are connected to this network and are able to import and recall memories from each other, maybe there's a Park Planet network that allows Frankie to access information like an entire infomercial and transports her to a subdimension, kind of similar to when she talks to Gwen later in the episode before fighting against the Sun Knight. It would also explain how she's so knowledgeable despite never working as an engineer at Park Planet. She's so affluent with this tech that she doesn't struggle even a little when fixing up Gwen on this huge machine that she wouldn't have access to, otherwise she wouldn't have needed to ask Andi for help. She even comments on how these animatronics are made by design, helping Andi troubleshoot a problem and ultimately fix it.
Why would anyone splice the facial controls into the environmental pipeline? It's not a very sophisticated solution.
I'm thinking that she is able to access these training modules through these infomercials and other info that's stored in the server that Frankie has access to. Others don't think she's a cyborg, but rather is infected with the blue disease that effectively runs the parks. I would still classify this under Park Planet tech, and is definitely my runner-up theory. Who's to say there aren't varying degrees of severity in this disease? Some people could be asymptomatic to its effects like Frankie, but it does make me wonder if this is a common side effect of the blue. Why is Frankie the one who has it? We haven't seen any other characters really have this kind of ability like Frankie does, so I definitely have some questions. But I have one more factor to further solidify this cyborg theory. What if I told you I know what part of her is mechanical? A lot of people pointed out in the pilot episode that there's a lot of foreshadowing towards something happening to Frankie's right eye. She uses her eyelids to open a bottle, which I thought for sure ruled her out as a fully human, but apparently it is possible to actually do that in real life. So yeah, the bottle cap thing, she gets punched by Sparky in the right eye, and in the scene where she's hallucinating that infomercial, the scene right before Andi comes home, is a close-up on her eye, specifically her right eye. Close-ups in film typically showcase something intimate or emotional happening, or a detail that the writers think you should pay attention to. So I want to take a long shot to say not only are they emphasizing importance on these hallucinations, but her seeing them. Her eyes or eye is allowing her to see this. There's also just a lot of eye symbolism on Frankie's side of the plot. Sparky only having one eye, Guinevere's singular eye is what Frankie sees when she finds her in the trash pile, along with Gwen only having one eye. Heck, even Frankie's monitor has a scratched up right eye. That's my long shot. It doesn't really matter what part of her specifically is biomechanical anyways. The important thing is, for the purposes of my theory, she's a cyborg or Park Planet tech adjacent adjacent. Next up, let's talk about Olivia. You cannot change the past is a quote Orville says to his daughter after gifting her an enormous amount of wealth in the form of Park Planet itself. Some people think that this is talking about the little girl's mom. We see a family portrait in the girl's room in which the mother's face is invisible, definitely hinting at something deeper going on beneath the surface. I'm with the idea that her mom died and her dad made an attempt to either keep her alive or find a way to transfer a consciousness to a machine. By the time they fully figured out this machine and how it worked and how to operate it, her mom was dead, but the almost organic machine that was made to host her remained. The little girl does not move on, instead resenting and punishing this machine. You also see her dad have this blue spot on his temple while showing Olivia Park Planet for the first time. We can only assume that the blue spot is blue, the disease, and it's from working on Guinevere, and is only a small fraction of what became of him as the disease progressed, leaving the little girl parentless. Now, regarding her behavior towards Guinevere, studies show that exposure to childhood abuse and neglect has been significantly linked with the likelihood of arrest for violence. I think Olivia has been heavily neglected as a child. I mean, her dad literally gifted her a company instead of something actually meaningful, and doesn't see an issue with her daughter taking apart a robot and putting it back together again and again and again. The opening statement, a princess trapped in a tower locked away by complicated machines that run on blood and fear. It's both referring to Guinevere and Olivia. Like most people, we theorize that Olivia is unable to leave the tower either because her father won't let her or she has some kind of illness that wouldn't allow her to. Then the lines, she was in dire need of rescue play, and the establishing shot we see is of that same family portrait, insinuating something sinister is going on within this royal family. Olivia, and subsequently Guinevere's portion of the story, is going to be centered around trauma and healing from your familial wounds. I mean, Olivia is quite old in the time skip and behaves almost opposite to how we perceive her as a child. As a kid, she acts indifferent and violent, scary even, but as a mature adult, she's almost regressed, throwing tantrums and being very emotional towards her very indifferent nurse animatronics. Or humans wearing suits, we don't know yet. She's changed, but still is very much holding on to that childhood trauma. Hopefully, as the series progresses, the main characters will either help her heal past it, or maybe she's too far gone and the only thing to do is bring her to a peaceful end. Last but not least, we have little Miss Andi. Does Andi have this blue lung disease, and what even is this blue disease? From what we've seen, this disease is caused by whatever substance we see Park Planet using to run the robots, technology, and possibly every part of the park. We've seen it in every form: liquid, polluting water, gas coming out of factory pipes, drugs and exotics, the quote-unquote good plastics, which possibly alludes to the blue substance being in literally everything Park Planet and is considered to be valuable. It's even melted into Frankie's monitor. Unless this disease is so normalized that Park Planet is making merch off of it, which would be insane, but kind of on brand. I'm willing to bet this blue substance is even melted into metals like Frankie's monitor. Speaking back on blue lung, what's more interesting is people's reaction to the disease. We see news clippings of babies being born blue. It causes this man to have a coughing fit, and Andi sympathizes with him, saying, "Sorry, hope you feel better." We see pollution, and there's people protesting against the park, so it's clearly having a negative impact on the world. But we have to ask ourselves, to what extent? Andi's animatronic literally spills out blue blood, but both her and Frankie don't really react, at least not to the fact of potentially getting infected by blood. Heck, Andi literally gets spat and coughed on directly on the face, mind you, and the most she does is wipe it off with her sleeve and act slightly disgusted before putting on a gas mask. You'd think if it was a contagious, fatal condition, people would be more cautious. So maybe the disease isn't contracted through people, but a direct cause of environmental effects. The substance being found in food, water, and the air instead. Or maybe it's not that fatal, at least not instantly. Olivia, for example, is in direct contact with blue blood while fixing up Guinevere throughout the years, yet she's still alive at her very vague, very old age. It might even be tolerable with the right medication, money, and privilege. Or maybe it's a disease with varying degrees of severity, like I said earlier. Some people may have it worse while others are asymptomatic. But that's all up for debate and theory. What we really want to to determine is what the narrative significance would be if Andi got the blue lung disease. From what I see, the vagueness of the scene with Andi and Sparky is what people are using to say that it's Sparky who has blue lung, not Andi. I don't think that's the case though. The show has consistently shown us the overarching theme of blue lung through Andi's side of the story. The animatronic combusting blue blood, the infected man coughing on her, and the Sparky handshake. They are subconsciously making a connection between Andi and this nebulous blue disease. So let's break down either narrative. If Sparky gets revealed to have blue lung, yeah, it'll be sad, but not surprising. He smokes blue all the time. Frankie will probably be sad since it appears that Sparky and her have a deeper relationship than just boss and employee. Maybe it'll influence Frankie's decisions in the future, fighting to save the princess as we learn about blue blood and how it runs the parks. I don't really see it doing much beyond that. Andi, on the other hand, whew, oh boy, a woman who has already been so beaten down by the system, fired by her shitty company, staying up all night to overwork herself, in her own words, just trying to get by, when she suddenly gets infected with a blue lung disease, with no money for medication or treatment. She starts to rot. Now, that's an inciting incident. That's a motive that will drive her for the rest of the series. I can see that plotline going in one of two directions. One, she has nothing to lose, so she helps Frankie take down the system and save the princess and free her from her integrated consciousness, which would be very nice and good and definitely what we want to see, right? You know, happy ending, just two best buds saving the world. But in typical theorist fashion, I have a much darker theory. This actually causes tension and conflicting motives for Andi and Frankie. Frankie is the optimistic hero who would welcome that role with open arms to save the world from a great evil. Andi, not so much. Andi is the pessimistic realist we become when we grow up and get introduced to the quote-unquote real world. Most of the characters in the show have this ideology that selfishness is the only way to survive in this world. It's almost nihilistic. Characters like Frankie get ridiculed for being naive, optimistic, and having that childlike wonder. Her boss and childhood best friend justify their selfish acts to protect her from the world. Andi is already surrendered, adopting the if you can't beat 'em, join 'em mindset. Although Frankie isn't perfect, she never sacrifices her core values and does everything with good intentions. She wants to work for Park Planet to genuinely inspire and spark joy in children. Again, she says she wants to fix Gwenna because she will show Park Planet her skills as an engineer and finally be able to work there, fulfilling her childhood dreams. Even her imaginary friends, which kind of work as her subconscious, tell her to think of it like rescuing Gwen. Frankie is intrinsically driven by curiosity and heroism, being curious about how Gwen got here, why she's all broken, and what she can do to fix it. It also explains why maybe Frankie didn't get the job as an engineer, but Andi did. Frankie is clearly the better engineer, whether because of her secret gift or not, having all these little animatronics, the little hacker thing, and helping Andi with her job in a way that even Andi couldn't figure out. I'm willing to assume Andi took the proper steps to get to the position, whereas Frankie just follows her heart and does what she feels is right. She hones her skills through genuine curiosity, not a scarcity for money. She even is hinted at being more rebellious or defiant to the rules when Sparky brings up pulling teeth as a punishment, and we can see Frankie visibly missing teeth. That's all to say, Frankie and Andi almost have opposite worldviews, and it's only fair to suggest there to be a crack when pressured with this big responsibility. Andi doesn't want to save the world. She just wants peace. She just wants to survive and do what's best for her and maybe her loved ones. When they plan on fixing Gwen, Andi says, "I have a good feeling about this. I think this will really improve things." At the end of the day, Andi just wants a better quality of life for herself and the people closest to her. She wouldn't mind being the villain if it means she's doing what she thinks is best. And going on a runaway mission with an android that seems to always be under attack sounds like a death sentence. It's not like she holds that much sentimental value towards the princess like Frankie does, so what does she gain out of this? Nothing. All it takes is one negotiation from Olivia or one bargain of money or resources to treat her recent diagnosis, and she would make that choice. She would betray Frankie. She would trade Guinevere for a better life. Now, does she succeed at this? Probably not, because that would make for a shitty ending, but I theorize that Andi is going to have a more antagonistic role than most people think. Now, I have one more string on the evidence table to contribute to that theory, and that's the connection that Knights of Guinevere has to Arthurian legend. Yes, I'm talking about it. I want to preface that I have an unconventional take on what rules I give everyone, so feel free to call me stupid in the comments. The Reddit threads have said much worse to me regarding this theory, so I could take it. Brief overview of Arthurian legend. Okay, so it goes, King Arthur establishes this kingdom called Camelot with these new values and ethics of chivalry, justice, and unity. He creates this brotherhood, the Knights of the Round Table, and King Arthur marries Guinevere, who is not a happy wife. Lancelot, who's one of the knights serving the king, has a scandalous love affair with Guinevere. Mordred, this other character, exposes this love affair, causing a whole other plot line of bullshit that doesn't really matter in the context of this video. And then Mordred betrays the king by trying to steal his kingdom. They fight to the death, causing both of them to die tragically. The end. This is a terrible summary, and the story has a lot of different retellings, so we're gonna leave it at that. For the purposes of this video, King Arthur is Olivia in her enterprise as Park Planet. Guinevere is the unhappy wife forced to be at her monarch's side. Frankie is Lancelot trying to free her from a miserable life. And don't hate me, but Andi is Mordred, betraying everyone closest to her and taking the world down with her at the end. So what does this mean for the overarching story of Knights of Guinevere? The moment of truth. How do I think it's going to end? I think once Guinevere is functioning enough to tell the main two what's going on, pleading to fix her and help her escape, Frankie will undoubtedly come to the rescue, while Andi will be the reluctant follower. Once Andi's symptoms worsen, she will be faced with the moral dilemma of deciding what to do. She will see opportunity in the tech that runs through Guinevere. Guinevere might even open up to solutions that Andi doesn't have the privilege or money to access, leading to more desperation in solutions. While Frankie keeps positive and tells her they're gonna fix it together, maybe even with a more unorthodox, naive solution, perhaps with some of that insider knowledge that Frankie was able to access with her secret powers or whatever we're gonna call it. But Andi is resistant to this because for her, the only solution there has ever been is surrendering to the system. After multiple pursuits and attacks, Olivia or adjacent, like the Knights, offer Andi a deal to conform. Hand over Guinevere and all your problems will be solved. You and Frankie can live a beautiful lesbian life free from monetary restraints and disease. And Andi takes the deal, handing over Guinevere, betraying Frankie. Almost. At the last minute, Andi changes her mind, instead betraying Olivia and siding with her best friend of all time. In a brutal final battle to take down the entire database and freeing all Guineveres, Andi ends up sacrificing herself but taking Olivia down with her. Dead is the monarchy, dead is the oligarchy that is Park Planet. Frankie and Guinevere survive, witnessing the revival of the new world. The end. Those are the broad strokes I see the show taking. I know it's a lot. It sounds crazy. There's probably some of you who are saying, like, what about Olivia's Knights? I thought those were supposed to be like King Arthur and Lancelot. You're just gonna glance over all that? And to that I say, yes, dear viewer, I say what I want. At the end of the day, this is just my personal opinion and theory on what a possible ending could be. I'm sure Frankie's power will play a bigger role in the story as well. This is my first time actually writing down and expressing a theory, so I have no idea what to expect. I just hope this was entertaining and you like my little fan art. I'm back to making a redesign video next month, so stay tuned, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.